can find it easier. Can find it easier on my computer. So awesome. Well, thank you all for joining me. And a big thank you to Lunar Hearth Cauldron for allowing me to come on again. I guess I'm kind of the token guy around here, which is fun. So, but yeah, thank you everybody for coming by. My name is Jarrod. I go by Rowan Wolf. I'm the owner of Rowan Wolf Runecraft and Spectral Bear Healing. That's more of my spirit worker page. Eventually they're all going to get blended together. So I did want to work a little bit different with this class. I've been talking a lot about individual runes, or I've done some rune talks. This one I wanted to work with rune energy in particular with you guys. And I wanted to do that through a lot of things that I've been learning and working with, which is the wind. And what more perfect time of the year than moving into winter, when we expect everything to be still. But as this transition happens, as this season begins to change, as we move into the depths and fixed place of winter in the Northern Hemisphere, there's a lot of wind. And we see this in the Southern Hemisphere as well as we move into spring, or as we move into summer, actually, I guess I should say. We have that transitional period of the winds really coming in. And now is the time to kind of set our intentions, set our moment before we move into that fixed place where we can really gather and prime ourselves with that energy. And the rune that I want to work with for this is Ansus. And we were just talking earlier, there was a flyer that was
there's one missing
that has all of this information in there about Ansus and this rune. And in the lore, they connect this rune with spirit. And when we look at the root word of spirit, we get, actually, I think I can do that, maybe. Spiro, spirara, is the Latin word for breath, and it's where we get our word for spirit. So when we think about this, and we think about creation stories, we look at the Egyptian creation when Osiris breathed into the clay beings that were created on the Nile and gave them life. When we look at the Norse cosmology, Vili, Ve, and Othin all gave gifts to these hunks of wood that were carved into our form, Ashen Embla. And one of Odin's gifts was breath, spirit. And that's what he transcended to all of us. And we see this constantly in cosmologies all over the world. So there's something to this breath, to this spirit. Ansus has a lot of connections with being able to rebuild and restructure and create. When we look at the way that the Futhark is organized, it tells a little bit of a story. And after we move through the chaos of Thurisaz, which is this tornado, this destructive force that teaches us to deconstruct, break everything down, destroy, and fling things left and right like a tornado would. Ansus comes after to help us clear, to help us look at those pieces that are around and say what worked, what didn't work. What can we make from this to help protect us later, to help us rebuild and restructure, and what can we leave behind? And it's a really beautiful rune for that. Ansus, and because of that, Ansus is listed as a rune of manifestation. You know, we always kind of talk about, or maybe we're moving away from, hopefully, the secret, this idea of manifestation through thought. And Ansus holds a lot of that energy. It holds a lot of this, let me think about this, let me create, and it's all up in here. Now, in the Northumbrian Futhorc, which is the set that I work with 33 runes, there's a sister rune to that called Os. And Os is manifestation through sound, manifestation through doing. So you put these two runes together and you have the thought, and then you have the action that goes behind that thought to create. Os is OS, or sometimes you'll see it as OSS. And it's because, you know, with that thought, we have to create an idea somewhere. Whether or not we do the action ourselves, we put into motion with others maybe to create and set ourselves into that next structure. What else do I have written here? Communication. Ansus is a rune of communication. This is a really great rune to help connect you to your guides, help connect you to spirits, your gods and goddesses, whoever you're working with. It helps connect you to yourself and to be able to listen to and learn the messages that your body has. When you get that no trigger or you get that yes trigger, how do you recognize that? Where do you feel that in your body? Where does it resonate? Where does it manifest? And that's listening to the Ansus that's within us. Ansus is a great rune to have on your altar. It's one that can really help to connect that bond and help you hear the messages more clearly that are coming through. A number of years ago, I made a rune spirit board, and the planchette is Ansus for that reason, to be able to connect with those messages more effectively, to hear what needs to come through, and to help bridge that gap. Yeah, spirit helpers, we take all the time to listen, become aware, connect with our hearts, minds, and souls, and we can act upon these messages for support. So one of the activities that goes along with this is something that I learned from a woman who goes by the Practical Shaman, Renee Baraboo. You can find her on, well, her own page on Facebook, The Wind Clan, where she works specifically with wind energy. And I picked up her book recently and I've fallen in love with that. And I've been really working with it. And I noticed this strong connection with Ansus and the winds. And I realized that charging these historical magics that she's working with called wind knots with the energies of Ansus and bringing all of those things together made a lot of sense. And I wanted to bring that that experience that I'm having with you guys today. So today we're going to learn about making wind knots and the importance of working with Ansus as we call in the winds, as we call in spirits to become captured within within this knot. So if you have rope with you, awesome. If you don't, save it for a windy day. This is exercise can work in a couple different ways. One is to do it outside in the wind, and that's the ideal. That being said, if you don't have the time to wait for the winds to come through and help push that intention, then we use the wind that was given to us by Odin. We use our Ansus to charge these knots as well. The concept of wind knots goes back to old sailing. And you may even, sometimes you go into these, especially down in the southern United States, you may go into these restaurants that have like sailor themed things going on, or seafood restaurants that have, boating equipment and things like that. And you may see a rope with 3 knots in it hanging on the wall. And these are these wind knots. And each knot is representative of an intention. These sailors would put their intention, their need for a little extra boost of wind to get them through their journey. And as they needed it, they would untie one of those knots. And that's what we're going to do with our wind knots. This is a perfect new moon exercise to kind of help set these intentions. But again, you can do this any time of the day. Windy days is the ideal.
One missing.
And the 3 knots are set up in a way that will help benefit you. The first knot you tie is always to help give you that little extra boost when you need it. If maybe you have a paper that you're working on, you're in school and you have this or a project at work that you just need to get a little extra motivation behind, give you a little bit of inspiration. You untie that first knot and you release the Ansus, you release the breath of Odin, the wind, to help give you that little extra push to help you fill your sails and inspire. Now comes the time when you've been inspired, but maybe you really need to get this done. Maybe they bumped your deadline. You have, something that you need a huge gust for to really fill the sails, to really get you moving. And that's where that intention behind that second knot would come from. You untie that and you release that wind to fill your sails, to push you forward, propel you into that successful place. The third knot, on the other hand, is one that you may not ever untie. Sometimes you may. This is the storm. This is the reset. This is that moment where you're like, shit, something's got to change. We need to fix this. I need to get out of this job, find a new job, rebuild, reset. This is the release of Thurzaz. It's the release of Hagalaz, these rune energies and spirit energies that are there to create chaos, create destruction, and turn your world upside down so that the Ansus that's released along with it gives you a place to rebuild and reset and really give you the inspiration to do that. That knot is not to be taken lightly, no pun intended. So the idea, though, is to, while you can set a general journey wind knot, there's nothing wrong with that. The idea is to choose something that that you're going to be working with this year. As we move into a new year, this is a perfect opportunity. Maybe it's to sell your house and move you into that place. Maybe it's whatever, a larger project to keep you going and keep going throughout this year. And that's where this intention is going to come from. Does that make sense? Cool. Excellent. Well, there'll be time for some questions and answers in here as well. I want to make sure that everybody has the information they need. So I have I have rope here. Ooh, you can see it. One of the things that I did was waxed the one end. One, to help it from not falling apart, but two, so I know what my first knot is versus my third knot, because you don't want to untie the wrong one accidentally. The second one's easy. It's in the middle. We're always going to be able to find that one, right? So the other way you could do it is, I was actually working on my splicing skills from Boy Scouts, and I don't remember how to do that, so that was not working well for me. But finding a rope that has a loop at the end already, a metal hook of some type, maybe making your own metal hook, something to designate what's the third knot versus that first knot, because that first knot's going to be at the bottom of your rope. It's going to be the easiest one to untie. All right. So the idea behind this is we're going to have a nice windy day outside where you can sit and not freeze to death. But again, you can do this any time of the year. This is not a winter only activity sort of thing. And again, we can call our own wind as well into these knots. And that's what I'm going to do, because the air in this room is pretty still today. So I'm going to think of an intention that I want to move forward with, something that I want to manifest and create and kind of keep myself motivated with throughout the year when I need that little extra push to get myself going. And I'm going to Galder the Rune Ansus. I'm going to chant that name 3 times. And as I'm releasing it, of course, I'm releasing this wind into this knot. And I'm going to begin by starting the knot, but not pulling it completely shut. I'm going to prepare that. Ansu, Ansu, Ansu. Breathe into the knot and tie it off. Now that first intention has been set and sealed into the first knot. We're going to do that with our second knot when I need that huge push to fill my sails, to get me really motivated when things really start to take off this year and move me into the next phase that where I need to be. Ansus, Ansus, Ansus. You can see that. And then we'll end with the storm. When whatever it is that I'm manifesting doesn't turn out the way I need it to. When the time comes to potentially reset, rethink, and redesign what it is that I'm trying to accomplish this year. Ansus. 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 And maybe it'll show up. We have our 3 knots ready to move us into a place of manifestation, of creation, of rebuilding and clearing, and giving us the wind and the momentum to propel us forward when we need it the most. But remember, once it's untied, you got to keep going on that rope. There's not a, hey, let me retie this one. It's a chain reaction that continues. And like I said, you may never untie that second. You may never untie that third one. You may find in a month that you're untying all 3. It really depends on your situation and the intention that you put behind it, the momentum that you need to get through something, to get through that journey across the ocean to get to your destination. Does that all make sense? I have a huge project, so I'm really excited to have this knot, because I definitely know that there are times where I'm going to need that first and second knot. And I'm really hoping that I don't need that third one, because that's a whole reset that I am not prepared to handle right now, but needs to be there. Sometimes we need that chaos. We need that disruption. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these forces of nature in our lives. And we wouldn't have Ansus to help us work through it. So awesome. So I'm going to open this up. This is a super basic spell that has some really powerful momentum behind it. And I encourage you all to really work with this. In the paper that I sent out, I think it's 2 pages. At the bottom, I do link the, it's 3 pages. Excellent. I link the video that Rene Barabu has out that goes over wind knot creation as well. I strongly encourage you to watch that as well, because this is her. I'm relaying her information. So I definitely encourage you to check that out, because she's going to have different perspectives than my perspective. So check those out. Check out her book as well. Wind of Spirits, or Winds of Spirit, I think it's called. And then the Shaman's Cave is the podcast that she has with Sandra Ingerman that just has some really great outlook and philosophies on life and how to work with those. And they both have been some really great mentors to me through their podcast. So I do strongly encourage checking those out and work with it as well. Ansus is the wind. Ansus is putting that energy in there, but there's no reason that you can't bring in some additional energies to work with as well. You don't have to work with Othin. You don't have to work with Ansus. If you're working with, I don't know, Isis, and that goddess is coming forward, and she's the one that's helping you on your journey, capturing her breath in there is perfectly fine as well. Or maybe you want a full wind energy to come through. Maybe you want to bring in Kari or some of the other energies as well. The PDF, or I think it's a Word document, should have been sent out in the email. I think it's at the very bottom. I scrolled through as well and thought I missed it. So it should be at the bottom down there. I think there's 3 or 4 other files as well. So, all right. Well, I'm going to open up to some questions. If you guys have any questions about this practice and where it can be used and what energies are a good idea, what maybe aren't good ideas, we can talk about those and discuss. So.
Well, I was getting all excited there for a minute, and then you brought up a couple of room names, and I went, maybe not. But yeah, I've been getting lots of indicators of needing to literally remake myself. But I don't know that I want to blow myself up.
There are some really great runes to help work in that process. One of them is the rune AR, which is out of the Northumbrian set. AR is it's the compost rune, is how I kind of describe it. It's a rune of death and transformation, but it's a slow decay. And it gives you time to really reflect and look back and say, oh, maybe I didn't want to throw that away just yet. So you have the option to kind of pick and choose these areas of yourself to work with on a little bit slower pace. Working with something like Quirth, on the other hand, which is conflagulation, like it just, you're on fire and it's done, transformation, no looking back sort of experience. So working with AR might not be a bad thing if you're looking for the transformation, but a little bit slower pace. So maybe even infusing that third knot with AR along with Ansus might not be a terrible idea. Help slow down that chaos a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's best. I don't want to,
Yeah, Issa.
Something.
Yeah, Issa would be another one to work with as well, because Issa is stillness, it's ice. So it gives that time for reflection as well.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have some questions or thoughts on the process?
All right, I'm just gonna say it. It's kind of odd seeing a man. I love that we have that special one though.
Yeah, the
Thanks.
token.
I like being that.
I'm trying to get to know them. It's I'm not very informed on them yet. It's kind of slow and come and go, but it's so hard to remember it all. So I've been one at a time, but you really simplified it, and I really liked that, because sometimes in text or other videos, it's like you're just hit with all this and you're like, wait a minute, what? So I really appreciate how simple you made it, because that made me a little more hopeful about learning it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, this is a journey that I've been walking for almost 30 years. Actually, I think it's 30 years this year. And it's a long time. It's a journey that never ends, because sometimes I'll get a cast that I do for a client, and all of a sudden a rune that I think that I know the message behind or the concept behind shows up, and it's a totally different message altogether. So there's always learning, there's always experiences that come forward when working with them. And your experiences are always going to be different than mine, you know, or any other rune reader. So understanding a fundamental, understanding that Fehu means cattle and wealth is great, but dig deeper into that. What does cattle mean? What does it mean to you? What did it mean to those people, the people of the North, and in the olden days, we'll call it, for lack of a better term? Well, cattle to them meant wealth. What happens if you didn't take care of your cattle? Well, they died. So there's an element of taking care of your wealth, taking care of your money. What happens if they didn't give away some of their milk? Well, then the milk went bad. So there's an element of sharing that wealth with others as well that comes with the rune Fehu. Sometimes it's connecting a lot of puzzle pieces and looking at how it relates to you in your life now and how it related to the people back then. And where's that correlation, and how to help us understand how to work with these runes and infuse these runes into things and hear their messages that make sense. The runes are going to present themselves in a way that you understand if you allow them to. The face value meaning is a gateway. Two hands go up. I don't know who was first. Chris, was that you or Jen?
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
Anyway, I was just gonna say exact same thing, Natasha, honestly. And I mean, I've always, in every lifetime, always used the runes, and it's an eternal journey and understanding of them. And so like that, like you're saying, like those basic keywords are the gateway. That's how you get going. And then, because, like Hagelus has developed from destruction to protection for me. It no longer means things are going to be torn down. It means I need a little extra umph somewhere, or whomever it does, kind of thing. And sometimes that protection leads to destruction of other things, but destruction doesn't come first all the time. But yeah, I think I've also been this lifetime, 30 years working as well. I thought that was kind of cool. And it's, 20 years ago, it meant destruction. But at that time in my life, there was a lot of destructive things going on. So, it also the runes can mean to you differently as you move through your life, not just your path and your journey. So Tasha, don't freak out. And the runes aren't for everybody. Everyone hears runes and they're like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this. And they're not for everybody. And some people don't want the little stone or the little piece of wood. I have a card rune deck that is what I take everywhere with me, because my little other pieces are like too heavy and I don't want them lost. And I really don't care if this deck gets lost because I don't have that kind of connection with it. And then I have my Viking Oracle that has the gods and it has all the different realms along with the runes. And that speaks to me completely different than my Elder Futhark, and I know my Northumbrian runes well. So, and there are some similar Northumbrian runes in the Elder Futhark, but they're going to have different meanings. Maybe right. Similar, but they're going to be different. So don't freak out.
And you can just like you said, you can absolutely learn to read the runes at face value and get great results as a divination tool, just reading them as you would tarot. Or you can take it to that next level, and you'll know if you are to take it to that next level. It's not typically an option for you, where you really do have this intimate relationship with them. So don't think that it's one or the other. Like, you can get away with just being a rune reader, you can get away with just being a tarot reader, or you can really develop that relationship and cultivate that relationship with the energies that are present there. So, Jen?
Okay. I have been, I'm kind of in the crone stage. I've been practicing for over 30 years. However, with me, I've always been really deeply connected with earth, even though I have a lot of water in my natal chart and my moon chart. But I've worked with like Egyptian gods, Roman gods, the Greco-Roman gods. So the Morgan has surfaced in my life in the last 6 months, and I'm finding a lot of, Celtic and Viking type similarities. And Chris made a playlist for us, and she awakened something in my soul that rattled. So I feel like, even though I kind of know my drill, this is so fresh and new for me. And how would you suggest someone like me who just goes to the beach and, and is there, because I want to approach this with a beginning and a good start, but I feel like it's so overwhelming. I don't know where to start.
Working with those particular energies, or?
Well, like with the runes, I mean,
Okay.
Is that a good basic, or is, I don't know, it's like, to me, it's like I have a choice between this. And then with this kind of thing, I was like, is runes, like you guys said, is it the gateway? And is that the best thing to do, is try to learn a rune a week, or to get in this kind of mode?
So one of the, so I offer classes on this, and there's actually a 4-part series, or a 3-part, depending on how you wanted to do it. But one of the things that we work with, and because I break it down into the 3 ayats, or 3 sets of 8, I tell everyone at the beginning of the class, choose a rune. Doesn't matter. You don't have to know it. Doesn't matter. Learn its name and go from there.
Okay.
And hang on to it for X amount of days, months, week, whatever it is. And what do you experience with it? Excuse me. For instance, one of the first class, one of the women taking it decided to choose Kenaz. And Kenaz Calm in the Northumbrian set is not only a guiding light or inner knowing, but it's also listed as turmoil and suffering, especially to children, and physical pain, like a boil on the body. And she comes in and she's like, well, my children had the worst week ever. So creating this kind of energy, working with it and learning it and understanding that and looking at the experiences that go around with it can make a huge impact. Just like we're working with these wind knots, if you're working with just Ansus to bring that in, you're going to experience that energy. If you start infusing it with other energies as well, maybe you call in, we'll use Compson. It's a wind I worked with recently. It's an Egyptian wind. It's a very hot wind. It's an energetic wind. Maybe you pull that in. Well, now all of a sudden you're experiencing these energies of intensity, of heat, of dryness, these little things that can come forward to express themselves. So maybe working with that individual rune and just starting one at a time, reaching into a bag and asking, what do I need to know right now? What energy wants to come forward and begin working with me? And just carrying it with you, putting it in your pocket, putting it under your pillow when you sleep at night, throwing some mugwort on there along with it, that experience, and welcoming that spirit in. From my perspective, the runes are all individual spirits. Those little chips, the stones, whatever it is that we're using are nothing more than that. For instance, like my tattoos, this is a home for my spirit guide. So when I need that energy, when I need that help, when I'm casting runes, I'm calling in the rune Kenaz, I'm calling in the rune Quarth. A lot of fire today, that's odd. To help listen to that message. It just creates a home for it. So by you carrying that, you're welcoming that rune spirit to come work with you at that time and to hear the message that it has for you at that moment.
That's cool. Nobody's ever said it that way. That's really cool. Are there, because there's different types of runes, right? So is there a certain one that's more like do this one and not that one?
So the set that most people work with is the Elder Futhark. The Northumbrian is in there as well. For me, I don't work with the younger as a means of divination. I know people that do. Ryan Smith from the Way of Fire and Ice, his group and book. I do know that he reads with the younger. To me, that's more literary. Those spirits haven't spoken to me the way the other ones have. So doesn't mean they're not valid. They just haven't that way. And then there are some other sets as well that are out there. There's only one that I have tendency to really avoid. I respect it for what it is, but I just don't use it. And that's that Armenian set. But the Elder is probably the easiest one to find, the easiest one to grab onto and work with. There is no bad rune. And that's a really common misconception, is that there are runes that are painful or bad or awful. They all have a message to teach us. Chris brought up Hagalaz. I brought up Thurzaz earlier, that tornado, the one that breaks things down. People see Isa, which is a rune of ice. And that rune means stagnation. It means they're going to be held up somewhere, they think. Well, not necessarily.
Right. So like the Tower card, it doesn't mean it's negative. It's just something big's coming. Right.
Or the devil or death.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's no negative
connotation.
Right. It's all in the message that comes about from it.
Awesome. Thank you. You gave me so much wisdom. Thank you.
You're welcome. And again, like I say, with the knots, you can infuse those energies in there as well. Maybe each knot that you're making when you're doing this, maybe you infuse each one with Ansus, and maybe you choose Fehu as well. And with Fehu, you are allowing that energy to come forward, and you want that message. You want a little extra push. Maybe you kind of understand it. You kind of have this relationship going with Fehu. And now all of a sudden, Freya is coming in and saying, hey, over here, this is how you take care of this wealth. This is how you stand up for yourself and find your value at work. This is, this little extra push to move you into understanding that rune, but also helping that not release its energy for you as well.
Awesome. Thank you. That's amazing.
You're welcome. I saw that, Chris. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts? All going to go out and make some wind knots today, or?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. If you're using the wind that's around us, which I do encourage, not that our spirit, our wind isn't good enough, because it was given to us by these energies. The experience can take longer than 10 minutes. You may find yourself waiting an hour in between to capture this energy, to capture this breeze. Be patient, because it's all about awareness as well. What's going on around us as we're sitting outside? What are we connecting with? What are we noticing? Because as we're waiting for that wind to come forward, how do we know? How do we know that that breeze is about ready to hit us? Maybe we notice the leaves moving. Maybe we get a little bit of a chill. What's happening at that moment in time to prepare us to seal that energy within? So awareness is key as well. Awesome. Well, I wanted to make a quick offer to everyone as well. I strongly encourage you to follow Rowan Wolf Runecraft and Spectral Bear Healing on Facebook if you aren't already. If you are, and you are interested in one of my services, reach out to me directly on Facebook. Send me a text or a message through Messenger. You can reach out to me as Jarrod May, or through Rowan Wolf or Spectral Bear. Let me know that you were in the Breath of Odin class, and I will do 20% off of one of my services for you. This is good up until the 31st of this month, December. That doesn't mean you can't schedule out. If you want to schedule an appointment in February, that's fine. I'll still give you the 20%. And I'll send you a link and everything that way. So Breath of Odin, I actually put that in the chat. How do I open the chat? There we go.
Hey, Jarrod, is there any way you could just review what services you do have on your website?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I forget sometimes. So my main service for runes is divination. It's about an hour. I typically can get about 3 questions in at that time. It's a full casting with, I use an animal oracle deck as well to help provide a little bit of animal support in there at that time. These questions are the idea is to help. The idea is to help you with guidance, to help answer some questions, to help maybe reinforce a little extra support in some decisions that you've made. It's not like fortune telling or anything like that. So you're not going to get winning lottery numbers, but maybe. So that's one of the main ones. I do offer a type of energy healing as well, which my wife has named Elemental Pathways. So if you're interested in more of that, whole system resets or specific areas, we have we offer that type of Reiki energy, and I work very strongly with the spirits of nature and the earth and fire and air to really reset the system and work that way. I do offer talisman work there. So if Val, you were talking about kind of resetting and moving through some different phases of life, sometimes we have to get rid of something that we have a close bond and identity with and thought with. So I work with you to create a talisman that's personal for you, with instructions on how to use it and how to destroy it when that time is ready. So that's a service that I work with as well for you. And then there are some journeys as well. So if you're interested in, maybe you have a new guide that came in, especially an animal guide, and you're like, oh, I'm having problems connecting. I do offer a guided experience to help you connect with that guide. Sometimes that personal experience is a little bit better than just listening to a guided meditation or trying to take yourself through it. And then we talk about it if you're ready, if you want to. We talk about your experience, work through maybe some riddles that you might get in that, and we sit there for about a little over an hour and really delve into that. What else is on there? I do have some unlisted services as well. Those are a little bit more on the shamanic side. There is power animal retrieval that I work with if you're interested in doing that. Sometimes through life, we have these animals that work with us. And when we ignore them to a point where they're not being heard, they step away. They don't leave, but they go into hiding. And with that, part of ourself kind of goes away as well. And it's an opportunity to bring that back and reinvigorate and allow that energy back into your life. So I do work with that as well. It's an unlisted service, but it is on there. So. Oh,
Odd question. I'm sorry, Tasha. I didn't see your hand. I apologize. I'll wait until you're done.
Tasha?
Oh, Mandy, she can go ahead. I cut in all the time.
Oh.
I just had a question. Do you do gift cards if you wanted to purchase something for, let's say, a Yule present for someone and you're not sure which service they would like?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do have a gift card option as well. It's a one-time link for them to set up. My Calendly got a little weird, so I'm having difficulties logging into it, but you can still book through it, which is very strange. So I can work with the gift card a little bit different if you're interested, and you can just message me and I will get that set up in a way that'll work for you. Or I'm actually working on trying to get that link up and running for me to go in and get you a link. So
Thank you very much.
does that make sense? I'm sorry. Yeah, it's
no, it absolutely does. I just wanted to make sure, because I know Yule's coming up and this may be a great idea for some gifts for people to give services that would mean more than just a physical gift.
Yeah.
So I just figured I'd ask.
So I actually have a free consultation link on there. It's a 30-minute sit down, just kind of talk about what you might be interested in. What I may do if I can't get this up and running, if you're interested in a gift card, is message me and we'll send you something to direct them to that link, and they can just put in the comments that this was a gift card, this is what this is for, and I'll handle that service from there. So you're welcome. Tasha?
So I think this kind of ties into what she was talking about. And some of the services that you just described to us, does that kind of tie into your monthly membership? Because I actually got on your site and stuff and was looking, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't. Mm-hmm. So like all the services you were just talking about, does that tie into those level of memberships?
Yeah,
couldn't that be a way to gift as well?
Absolutely. So that's another option as well. I always forget about my Patreon. I'm trying to get everything in here and working. I do have a Patreon as well with different tiers on there. The first tier I think is $5 a month, and you get a collective rune cast. The second one is I think 15, and it's a monthly spell and meditation along with that rune cast. The tiers keep building on one another. The next one I believe is 10% off of services once a month. And then following that, there's a free 1-hour rune cast in conjunction with everything else. And the top tier is really, honestly, the best bang for the buck. It's a 30-minute spectral bear healing session, whether it's talisman creation or whatever, it's encompassed in there. The free rune cast a month. I just switched it over. Now you get a free class on a rune a month. So if you wanted to get a very in-depth 15-20 minute look at a particular rune, it's a great way to go through all 33 of them and gain that little experience. And that one's $100 a month. Totally worth it, because the rune class itself for a 2-hour session of 8 runes is $25. So to do that, the whole class is $100 alone. but that only includes learning them. So now you're getting the class, which is in depth, 20 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes about each rune. And then all the services, all those things rolled into one. So that would be an awesome gift card in and of itself, the gift that keeps giving subscription service. So, but enough about that. Keep that in mind. I want everybody to know. I want to keep focused on why we're here today, working with the knots. But yeah, please reach out and use that code to get yourself started, and go out and make some wind knots. Use this, harness this energy that's around us on a regular basis, these things that we take for granted or sometimes look at and be kind of destructive with, because wind can be destructive. We were talking about that at the beginning of the chat. How do we harness that destructive energy and listen to the message that it has and work with that? Because that destructive wind also fills our sails. It fills our lungs. It keeps us moving and going, and then ability to create. Chris?
Okay, just because I have a daughter who's very much coming into a lot, and she turns 12 next month, which is a big thing. How would I go about teaching a 12-year-old this? Now, she's not like public school 12-year-old, she's homeschool 12-year-old. So let me, and everybody here knows Zelda, and knows like how much she is capable of. So how would I go about teaching this to her? Because she sits with me and she's gonna ask, and like, what would you do? How would you do that?
How to teach the knots? Or
yeah, and express. I mean, because I can tell her all day, that third knot is not what you really want to. That's last ditch option.
Right.
But if she's like just feeling like she's done with something because she's frustrated, how do I express like the importance of not doing that just because you're in a moment?
So, well, and that's
a 12-year-old.
That's kind of what that first knot is for. Is when you're in that moment, you're like, I got to crack down and get this done. Give me this nice gust to, finish getting me to shore. God, this kitten, she's into everything. Maybe you just work with 2 knots.
Okay.
Don't worry so much about that destruction, because at that age, going into something where maybe destroying a friendship isn't necessarily something that's going to not necessarily not benefit, but that lesson may get lost.
Yeah.
So I would say working mostly with those first 2 knots.
Okay.
And maybe science project season is coming up, or maybe, do they still have like Sadie Hawkins dances? Is that a thing where the girls ask the guys?
They used to when I was in high school, but that was I graduated like in 98. So
Right? Like
I live in a totally different state.
Yeah.
So
but something like that, where maybe there's a little extra encouragement that's needed to get over a fear, or
because that would make sense. There's things she wants to step up with 4-H. And I think she's just a little apprehensive about it, and Cypher too. So that works. I mean, that's something that is easy to apply. If that makes sense. I mean, not like I didn't have to be easy, but like I already have a full day of lessons.
Right. And at
I
that
don't want
age,
it to become a task. I want it to become something, a tool that they can use.
And at that age, kids start becoming skeptical. They start questioning things. We want to encourage that. So the wind knots are beautiful because they have a very practical and historical use, because now you have sailors from all over the world that used to do this. And they put their faith and their crew on the line with this old magic, with this old energy. So there's something to be said about it. There's a practical aspect and tangible result that they can attach to it.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm not going to jump off yet, but I'm going to stop this. Thank you all. Again, please use that code, reach out. And thank you so much for being here today.